Clash of the Titans. Some decades, that's not clashing, that's actually the style. There is a movie called Clash of the Titans. There's an 80s classic film, and then I think a 21st reboot, updated version. I haven't seen either one to recommend to you, but I know there's quite a following for the classic Clash of the Titans. Coexist, page 4 of your notebooks. Coexist. So we're going to be looking here at some of the various ideologies, faiths, denominations, religions, ways of thinking. And the reason is because so many cultures have put their origin stories into the stars. And we will show you that a little bit later on, but give you a background of some of the ways in which people think. Just as some of the customs from the Greeks are still present in 21st society, such as the muses, so I'll wait to do the dishes till I get inspired, we will see that some traditions still ring true from these other places on the globe that have brought us some traditions. So coexist, a big old mix of different ways of thinking, ideologies, denominations, faiths, as I said before. If we were to take your zodiac wheel, but change it out for what we see here, these different types of symbols representing all various consorts of thought, we could perhaps have an ideology wheel or way of thinking wheel. Alright, so the first one I'm going to look at, and by the way, these are not all of the different ways in which people think across our globe. I'm just picking a few just to give you a different way of seeing the world, as some of these not as prevalent in the area in which we are currently residing. And of course, this isn't a world religions course, so I'm not going to do any of these any amount of justice. In fact, it's probably insulting how quickly and how little information I actually give about the items listed on this page here. And again, this is an astronomy class. I do want to point out some of these ways of thinking because we're going to lead this into one of the Western mythos that plays out into the night sky. So again, apologies, not a world religions course, may not do each of these justice, but I just wanted to broaden your thinking a little bit. So this right here is Hinduism. And what you want to jot down is, in fact, that it is the world's oldest religion still in practice. It originated in India, so the flag of India right here, and a common symbol associated with Hinduism. Now, we don't want to make the mistake that if you're from India, you're automatically a Hindu follower, or that if you're a follower of Hinduism, we wouldn't naturally assume that you are of Indian origination. This is just where the idea of Hinduism began. And here's an example of where I definitely don't go into great detail, but just try and provide you a very quick snapshot at Hinduism. They believe in one supreme God who created many gods, highly advanced spiritual beings to be his helpers. So this is similar to the later Greek mythology, where we have Zeus and god of war, god of love, so on and so forth. The sacred text is the Veda. If you've ever told someone, take a deep breath, be calm, find your center or your focus, those are things from an aspect of Hinduism with yoga. The ideology of Hinduism promotes not only tolerance and respect for differences in belief and religion, but also acceptance of those paths as legitimate. And this is something that stands out amongst many of the other ways of thinking, is that there is one truth, whatever that is, truth, righteousness, living a good life, however you want to define that. There is one truth, but the paths are many. And I find this a bit unique in the sense that some other ways of thinking and ideologies are going to put out there that, yes, there is one truth, but only one path to that enlightenment. As I said, very quick snapshot, quite insulting to anyone who's a follower of Hinduism. That is not my intent. My intent is just to build us up to a very prevalent Western theology idea of Christianity, and we'll show that story playing out in the heavens. But I just didn't want to look at just the world of Christianity. All right, I'm sure equally insulting and not meaning to be, a very quick look at Judaism. You don't have to have the dates. I just like to point out where we are in the timeline. So 2000 before the Common Era. Origination of Jerusalem, Israel. Shalom. And some key points here. Something that makes this different than Hinduism and other theologies, ideologies, is that there is one God. God is unique and the ultimate authority. The important figure, so not godlike or a lower god or a minion, but a human important figure is Moses, often referred to as a prophet Moses. And the sacred text is the Torah, which many people I have found in my classes carry around with them, as it's the first 5 books of the Old Testament. So very different than what we've looked at so far with the Greeks and the many gods. All right, we have the Dharma wheel. If any of you ever watched Lost, you probably did so binging through a streaming service, and how lucky you are, and we hate you, we being those of us that are older, because we had to wait for the weekly installments, and then it got into this monthly installments of trying to wait and wait to see what would happen. I point out the television show of Lost because there's a lot of references to Dharma and a lot of tenets followed within Buddhism. Again, you don't need the dates, but whew, we just went a millennia and a half through history. The origination of Nepal, so just up from the east of India. And Nepal is one of 2 countries of the world that do not use a rectangle for their flag. Clearly you can see here a sort of triangular form. If you're wondering, the other country that does not have a rectangular flag is Switzerland. It's a perfect square. Important to note about Buddhism is that the Buddha, and it is more appropriate to say the Buddha was not God or a God, so it's not a religion of God. If you want to label it as some sort of religion, then many Buddhists would describe it as a religion of wisdom, enlightenment, and particularly one of compassion. Moving a little bit more to the Far East, we're moving to Japan. You might think that Japan might call us the Far West, but relative to them, we're also the Far East. So we have Shinto, about 500 before the Common Era, origination of Japan. And again, you don't want to assume someone who might be Japanese is a follower of Shinto, or someone a follower of Shinto is Japanese. This is just where the way of thinking originated. In Shinto, it's very much about this word that me, as not a native Japanese speaker, will not be able to pronounce correctly, and I apologize for that. Those people who are native English and Japanese speakers since birth have tried to define what the word kami, again, not correct, sorry, is for folks who aren't followers of Shinto. And the way that native Japanese and English dual language speakers try and describe it is, if you think about the emotions generated with wonder, fear, and awe, wrap it all together, that's kind of the ultimate that a Shinto person is striving to achieve. And underlying most everything is a sincere form of loyalty to friends and family. There's no founder, there's no sacred text. Continuing on our relative east voyage, we have Confucianism, Confucianism, Fucianism, Confucianism. Same time period as Shinto. People's Republic of China is where it originated, as we call the country today. Now, Confucianism is also not a religion. People love to label things, and so maybe it could be check the box that it's spiritual philosophy, a social ethic, a political ideology, a scholarly tradition. Focusing on the scholarly tradition, it's very much steeped in meditation and deep thinking. Thus, Confucius concentrates teachings on vision, and all of this leading to better character, loyalty, similar to Shinto, and this idea of truthfulness, righteousness. Now, a lot of the meditation in Confucianism is not just take a few minutes, ponder something, and away you go. It could be hours of meditation, even a full day of meditation. Now I'm going to have you meditate, not for a day or an hour, but for 1 minute. You won't need to pause the video. What you're going to do is think about your reaction, your thoughts to a statement that I'll give you. Now, the statement is absolutely in no way, shape, or form from Confucianism. It's just trying to hint at the idea of something from the teachings of Confucianism. You might read and say, okay, yep, and move along. But then, oh, wait a minute. The more you think about it, the more you start to kind of have some deeper thinking about that statement or thought or story. So again, I'm going to make a statement, and it's a question. And for 1 minute, I want you to think about just your response to that question and try and move past the initial thought and really try and more deeply think about the answer to the question. And again, the caveat, this is not from Confucianism, just having you spend 1 minute thinking about something a little more beyond your initial reaction. All right, so I'll start a timer, and you don't need to press pause on the video, and I'll ask the question. I'll press the 1 minute timer, and we'll go from there. All right, the question for you to think about for 1 solid minute and nothing else within this 1 minute of your life, think about the question, what does a one-handed clap sound like? All right, so what does a one-handed clap sound like? Wash hands before making sound of one-hand clapping. So it's a common thing thrown out there for people to think about. Penultimate, next to last one in this column here, we have Islam. 600 before the Common Era. So you want to jot down Islam from the Middle East area. And after you've jotted down Islam, you want to jot down this very important distinction. So one of the frustrating things for followers of Islam is how non-followers of Islam mix up the term Islam and Muslim. Islam refers to the religion, while Muslims refer to the people. Now, as you get deeper into the Islamic faith, there are some places you could use Islam and Muslim interchangeably, but that's not on the surface level as non-Islam followers tend to talk about. So Islam, the religion, Muslims, the people. Always safe to just err on the side of that distinction. All right, some key points here with the following of Islam. There is one single deity, and that God of Islam is the same God of Judaism and Christianity. Now, the question to point out, do these different religions know this, that they're worshiping the same deity? The answer hopefully is yes. And sometimes people say, well, in Islam, I've heard them say, praise Allah. And Allah is just the Arabic word for God. God being a very English term, something associated with Christianity more so. And so, yeah, it is the same deity. If you do your research in the understanding of Islam, Judaism, Christianity, you'll find it is the same deity. An important figure to those of following Islam faith would be the individual of Muhammad. Now, Muhammad was an individual who in his youth was trying to find whatever that path of righteousness, way to truth, enlightenment is. There are a lot of options, and so seeking some guidance was visited by an angel. That angel happened to be Gabriel. And Gabriel taught Muhammad for a period of time what was considered the Word of God, and then was given the instruction, Muhammad was given the instruction by Gabriel to write down these teachings into a book and share that book with the world. And that book is the Quran, or the Quran, as we often say in the West. Final one on the page, not the final end-all of the things I could have listed here for you, but the one that we'll concentrate on here is Christianity. We have a Hebrew flag here because this does herald back to Judaism. Anytime you have a group of people following a particular set of rules or way of thinking, eventually you're going to have some people that break away. And for about the first 200 years, most anthropologists say, for about the first 200 years, the faction that broke away is not seen in a particularly good light and often is deemed cult in that they're a breakaway from the mainstream. And this was Christianity for a couple hundred years as it broke away from Judaism in about the mid-1st century. Judaism is the foundation, but it's not part of Christianity. The important figure is Jesus Christ, hence that name of Christianity, Christ. The sacred text is the Bible, which the Old Testament portion, first 5 books, are the Torah. So this is why we're saying Judaism is the foundation, but Judaism is very different from Christianity, likewise Christianity very different from Judaism. And arose as the Roman Empire spread. And in fact, when a Roman soldier was wondering if his comrade was also a Christian, and remember this was an underground cult, underground meaning not meeting in tunnels and caves, but not in the public eye, and a soldier would take his staff, spear, and just kind of doodle in the sand and the mud below, on the night watch perhaps, and would draw this shape, just a little innocent curve. And if the comrade in arms was of a Christian faith or following, then he would draw another of these curves and finish it off to make this symbol of Christianity, the fish. And this is actually, to my understanding, where the expression drawing a line in the sand comes from. How the Roman soldiers would communicate to one another that they were Christian. Christians were originally called atheists by the Roman Empire because they didn't believe in polytheism, many gods. So the term atheist has taken on different meanings throughout the era of humanity.